Let's go over to the Sifra Tzniuta. I'm going to start a new place. Now, over there, I don't know how much of an impression that made on you, but he had been talking about previously the change in the seventh millennium of the Anhag of the world. And I believe that what he said was that time stops. Because the Anhag of the world all depends on cycles, which is time. So I thought it was a very big idea. Exactly what the correspondence is between the number 12 and 7,000. It went through various different kinds of possibilities of the panemius being, let's say, the tikkunim of the rosh, and then coming out to the tikkunim of the beard. Those are two ideas, which would be 1/7 and 1/12. That's possible that we can look at it that way. Anyway, we're moving on, and we're on page Kuflama Gimel. Kuflama Gimel. We're going to just read the top. It says the Galufim. It's the, I guess, the carving out of the impression of impressions. It's like stamp of stamps. But so he says. Then he brings in this idea kecheza de hivya, and it appears like a snake. Arich, it's long. And it's pashet lakan, and it spreads to one side, to all sides. I don't know. Zanva beresha, it has its tail is at its head, and then it says resha. Either it says achor, but he doesn't want to say it's a resha ochid akasvin, so that the resh is tied to the shoulders. What that means, I don't know. It says avir v'zoyim nadir. Avor, so I guess I'll pass through. V'zoyim is lashon foaming, nadir. They grow. They keep that. I don't know. So he says, "Begon is chad, and one is hidden away. Elef yomim zeirim, to 1,000 smaller years. Smaller, 1,000 smaller years." There's a blurb here, and there's a lot. There's quite a bit of pirish on this, on this blurb. So let's look at it. It says the title is Tohu de Tanin. The Tohu goes with the word Tanin in some way, but Tikunu, and also the Tikkun of it. So he writes like, here's where it starts. Achashabir b'tevis Tohu. So now we went through the idea of Tohu, the seventh millennia. Shetihia b'sov sheshas alafim shana. Yivor ata. Now he says, now I'm going to explain. It will be explained. Ata b'pechin del sefer shel Tohu. Let's talk about it some more. Shuhu inyan his pashtus adinim. But so he says this is also the idea of the spreading of the dinim, which are called besod nachash of atanin the kedusha. Okay, so these are all. This is a concept of a snake, some language of snake that has to do in kedusha as well. So, in other words, we usually don't have a good opinion of the word snake. So he says what? He says the roots of these two snakes, or let's just say it's one snake, I don't know. He says Yivoyer, as we're going to explain, in other words, the snakes, the concept are the right left side of the Chesadim and the Gevuros in the Das is their Anpin, and these are the ones that died. And there's a bira that takes place. They're put back together in the secret of the first olam. Shall tikkun arishon to dikna to Eric Anpin, and this specifically refers to the first tikkun of Eric's Anpin, which is the word Kale, or I think. So he said, and from this then starts streaming out, pouring out, called Bechidas HaKelim Acharayim, to call it Partsufin. So all the concept of Kalim, and then the Kalim, I guess, have a Panimis and an Ach. So he says all the concept of the Acharayim to call Partsufin, for Olomos, the Tachtainim, for him Shor Shadinim, this is where the Dinim come besod Nachash Vatanim. So he said Kalim and Acharayim. So anyway, we have to kind of piece through that. So now talking about the Kalim. So the concept of Kalim is Acharayim to be, or I don't know, it's Chitzonis anyway. So he says, "Min Elul hakelim v'ha'acharayim nimshach unika the klipos besod nachash." So from this backside of the kli, something like that. That's the portal for the other side, and it's the secret of this concept of nachash. V'yuvar ki bebechinas elo mispashtim laorech kol olamot. So these kalim, they spread to all of the olamos, melamata lamala, from the bottom to the top. Mispashtim l'rochav the yom in the small. Not only does it go from the bottom, he said from the bottom to the top, not the top to bottom. I'm not sure why. So he says the mispashtim the rochav the yom in the small, and they also spread out to the right and the left. Besod chasadim and gevuros, which is what chasadim and gevuros do. Yuvar say that his pashtus of Olamos Bri Yitzir and Asiya. Now let's talk about how this, and he's talking about these snakes. So exactly where are they? What are they doing? That has to be explained. So he says, Besod Chasadim Begavur Yuvar say that his pashtus of Olamos Bri Yitzir and Asiya ki ikaro bebria, because the main part of it is in Bria. Shuhu Resha Mispashit Ba'acharayim. So he says the main part of it where you find that, he's talking about the snakes, I guess, is that in the Shuhu Resha, that's the head of it, is in Bria. Mispashit Ba'acharayim, the Yitzira, and it spreads onto the backside of Yitzira, which I'm not sure how that, I always thought it was on the inside, but he says on the backside of Yitzira, Shuhu B'Bechinas Achrei Kasvim to Zer Anpin, which is the concept of the back of the shoulders of Zer Anpin. And it has a shining, it shines or it radiates, the concept of back to back, Al Hazanva Shuhu Asiya, to the Zanva Asiya. Now he's trying to explain, this is a big metaphor, so we don't really understand the snake altogether, but it steads into the backside of Asiya. So the power of this backside we're talking about, which spreads into Yitzira, the Asiya, who besod Shem Kale. It's the secret of the name Kale. What Kale? The Kale of Tika the Rishon and now of Zoam, called al dinim, and it pours its fury out on the dinim, the klipos, the hachniim, in order to be able to bend them down, to humble them. V'hakadusha natir. So he says, natir, of course, means nishmar. Ma'achizat dinim. So he says what the kedusha is able to guard against the achizan, the dinim v'haklipos that come along with the klipos. Akaganus bo shorish laham shachos yanika the dinim. So he says, but he says it's hidden away, the root of this. The root of what? The lahamshachas yanika ledinim, to be able to spread or pour out the yanika to the dinim, the laklipos besod elef yamim, the whole, which is the secret of the 1,000 weekdays. Shuhu shorish elef shanos galos. So here's an attempt to try to put some of these ideas together, and if you want, we can read just the notes on this. So we've been through this before a little bit, although it doesn't ring any bells with me right now. So number Aleph here, we'll look at that. Number Aleph went on the phrase Shuhu'in is pashtus adinim b'sod nachash v'tanin de kedusha. So this is that concept, spreading the dinim, and it has to do with the concept of the spread of the snake. So he says, Inyan zer nirmez b'zohar, so this has been mentioned in the Zohar here. Zalashon of ha'aretz chayzatohu. So he's aware of this, on this particular phrase. Baraza de tanim agadol. So it's really in the secret of the big snake. So he says tanim is, okay, ayin sham ba'orech. V'rei b'sefer gala amikta, the deep wave. So I just go into the Rebbe, something, Pansir. Okay, I don't know. Shehevi Drush Ataninim Lari Tuvel. So these are people I don't know. These names, you know these people, these names I don't know them. So he says this came from the Ri Tuvel. He said this Drush Antaninim. So what happened over there? Shabir Maimer HaZohar Anal. So it actually explains the Zohar over there. So So this is really what they want to say over here. What is it? I'm trying to find it out. So he says, Lamala, Bezoar, he says, the land was completely empty, or whatever tohu vohu means. What is it referring to? Shehem Yud Gimel Tevus. There are 13 words over there in that pasuk. Hem Levushi, the Levushi, Kedemus Nachash. So what are they? They're clothing of clothing in the image of a snake. Shemispashet the kan that spreads on all sides. Zana Barosh, that his tail, somehow it sounds like a circle. Zana Barosh, that his tail is on the head, or maybe not, Adkan. Maybe it goes down a straight line with the tail and the head, and then that would be the head would be at the bottom. I don't know, Adkan. So here, we're at the beginning of the Sifra Ditzniuta. He said of the Nikra. So they call it a Nechivya. So he said Nechivya is a Nachash. So we're running all these words together. So he said, but as we go on, it's Nikratanin. So what's the difference? The Hainuhach, they're the same thing. Elatanim hu biyam. So once again, you have, what does he mean by that? So it's a sea snake. Nachash it's a land snake. V'rei bezoar, so there's a zohar over there, you can learn more. Okay, so that's kind of tangential. But somehow it's a lavush of a lavush. That's what he said. Let's read from number Aleph over to number Bet. It says, V'chaviyavarki. So he explains, Ki shorshim b'chasadim b'gavur shel melech hadash shemei. So the root of these is from the chasadim and the gavuras of a king that died. Shin is part of the nesakta episode olam arishon, who has gone through a refinement process, and is in the concept of the olam arishon shall tikun the rishon the digna derek anpen. So he says, what again? This is the Bira process episode olam arishon. This is the beginning tikun. Number base has a little bit of a richus to it. Let me see. Okay, here's number Bet. Bet says, Rei B'Shar Maimari Rashbi. Look over there, he says. Kan muva b'ha'araz l'chalon. Shekasa the Maimar Shalom v'neida mizboyer b'sod alma kademoa. So what we're talking about now is we're going to start talking about this first world, which is called Olam HaRishon. Okay, so the translation. Shall tikun the rishon the dikna de Erik Anpin. It's the world that comes out as a result of the first tikun of the beard of Erik Anpin. V'lechein nikra kan b'kekatzara bir inyan alma kademoa. So we call it by that name. Al pi ha'idra. I think it's supposed to be Idra Rabbah. V'divra Rizal amavoyim ba'araz l'holon. We're going to see it later on. So I'm still waiting here. Va'araz the Otzer Biurim over there, he says, that's in the back, I guess. V'huki ba'olam matikon, when we get to the concept of the olam matikon, kasha'alam it is one of the malach shemeso. So now, he said, what happened? They're coming back up. There's a bira process for the kedusha amongst the malachim. Azai mufchar habirurim, what happens? The best of the shal gimel malachim, harishonim, shehem bela yovav v'chusham. All of the tikkun, the rishon shall yud gimel tikkun dikna. Where do they go? What does it mean that they go up? They go up to the first tikkun, which is called Kale, the Erik Anpin and Nikra Kale. So now he says Erik Anpin is called Kale, or maybe doesn't mean that. He means the beard of their Anpin, and the first tikkun is Kale. So the first three kings go there. And from those three kings then, there are three outside universes that are worlds that are created. Gimel olamot. Alma kademoa olam arisha. So the first world, and he hasn't really told us exact. I thought I wanted him to say the first world is Atzilus. He hasn't said that. So he said from these three kings, they find their way up to the first tikkun of the beard, which is called Kale. you make three different. Let me see. Naase Birucha Bemelech Das Bella who sowed Shem Kale Shakai. So I guess I skipped through that, and I said that actually you could relate it like this. There's three different kales. So the three different kales are going to refer to the three different malachim. Olam Hasheni Mibirucha Bemelech Chesed Yovav sowed Kale Havaya. Olam Hashlishi Mibirucha Bemelech Gavur Husham sowed Kale Adni. So these actually represent three universes. They begin originally to go into three places in Itzilus. Shehem Bila Teferes and Malchus. Now, why does he say that? So, why wouldn't he say they go into the Chabad? Why did he say they go into these three places, which is the left side, the middle side, and the bottom? Which is also all places, let's say, of the processing of dinim, because they were dinim. They're all messed up with dinim. Let's see if that's an explanation. All of this, everything that's around with them, has to do with their backs. Now, why is that? Besod zilpa v'shnei meraglim ubilha. So let's talk about that. We saw this in the Eitz Chaim, and it's in some of the Kriya Shemala Lamita. I'm not really sure that I ever understood it very well. So he just tells us a fact is that the behind, I don't know which one Zilpa goes behind, Leah or Rachel, is going to be found Zilpa, the handmaid, or the secondary wife. V'shnei Meraglim, and then there's the two Meraglim, and then there's Bilha. Ba'achakach, yeah. Mispashlim ma'acharayim elu b'bechinas mochin the klipos b'sel beit siporim. Now, all of these words really could be developed really a lot better. We did have seen them before, but they need development. I don't remember exactly what the two Meraglim are about. Mispashlim elu b'bechinas mochin the klipos b'sel beit siporim, and the secret of two birds. So all of these kales, and these are the birurim from these three malachim, the first three malachim that died. All of them go to the name Kale, and they produce three kales, which devolve into three olamot. Besod zeh, and this secret, he says, Olam Arishon Melech Adas. Yoredim is Pasha the Mata Behechel Zechus, so it goes down to the Zechel, the Chusha Ruba Bechinas Gevura, the Olam Abriya, so it spreads into the Gevura of Olam Abriya. Olam B'Sheni Melech HaChesed, Mispasha B'Olam Yetzira, it spreads in Olam Yetzira, and then the Olam Ashlishi Melech HaGevura, Mispasha B'Olam Asiyah, it goes into the Olam Asiyah. So he says, "V'hinei al mechakademo melech hadas." So he says the first melech is the melech hadas. Agash mispashet l'chutz ela klipos. So now he said there's an extension that leads it into the klipos. Now I'm missing a little bit something here. He said that they went up to the first tikkun of the beard of Erekampis, a really high place, and from there they devolved, or they went in the first. They went into Tzilus first, and then from there's some extension that goes into, which it could be the snake, I'm not sure, that goes into the other worlds based on the word kale, variations. Behuso the chizis achitzonim, eitz hara hadas tov v'ra. So this is what happens with, let me read from the top. He said, Ba'amaka the moha melech hadas, because responsach b'tachutz al the klipos, Whoso the chizis the chitzonim, it's the concept of chitzonim going out, getting a hold of it. Eitz das tovara, also it's the concept of mixing those two, the eitz das tovara. V'azna azach b'men menhei chasadim b'hei gevuras b'chinas elef yomim dechol. Now let's look at it again. There's five. He says that 1,000. This is the number 1,000. The way we count days. It comes as a result of the ispashtus of the 5 and the 5. The 5 chasadim and the 5 gevuros makes 10. So it's elef yomim dechol. The galos v'hem gam sod elef yorim. They're also the concept of 1,000 what's the right word? Streams, big streams. Asher ben yorim elum ispashim tanim nachash the kedusha. Now, in these streams, and what is he telling me? Is he telling me that in these three olomos there's kedusha? Let me just see. He says Asher ben yorim elum ispashim, between these different mighty rivers, let's say. Which mispashat spreads out. That's where you find the tanim of that tzedakah to kedusha who bebechidas dinim. It's the dinim of kedusha that are riding along with this, going into the outer worlds. Ugenegdim mispashat tanin de klipa. So he says that there is a tanin there, which is a punishing tanin. Is the dinim. He means to punish the klipos, to beat them down. Corresponding them is another. There's another snake. This is snake the Kale. Va'afal God the tlas almim elohim shorish dinim. And so look, these three worlds are the shorish of the dinim, the shorish the klipos, and then it's the root of the klipos. So first of all, you have dinim. Then after dinim, the klipos get a hold of the dinim. So that means the shorish of the shorish. Because those in all this, in any case, he named it the gevuras the hechel al the gevuras of the hechel al. V'hem kofim amachniim adinim v'chaklipos besod Kale zoam, which is the concept of the fighting, I guess, the angry Kale. There is a little bit more because we're running out of time, and I don't think there's enough time to go to the other today. We could do that Mitzvah Shem tomorrow. We'll finish that up. Let's read down from number Bet up at the top to number Gimel. There's a very short Gimel, and we'll see if it has anything to help us with. So all of the Kalim, and then he has also the Kalim and the Acharim that go with him. And then the gateway, so to speak, to the Lomos Tachtonim, the Tanin, which is the root of where the Dinim comes from, and we have this number Gimel right here. Sifra Tivoir Tikun the Bechinas Anachash the Dinim. So now he has this. It's a little phrase he says. He calls it the Nachash the Dinim. So Shivaris Rosha Taninim al Hamayim. So I guess breaking the heads of the Taninim on the water. I'm not sure what that is, what it means. I have to look that up. So that's it for today. I think we're out of time. Thank you very much. Call to.